Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at, well, a really fascinating individual journey.
It really is.
Imagine starting out as a nuclear weapons technician, U.S. Air Force, then completely switching gears
Yeah.
to become this huge advocate for regenerative agriculture, and then finding a deep link between all that and Bitcoin.
It sounds almost disconnected, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Military tech, fixing the environment, and then digital money.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack that. How do these worlds actually connect? And maybe more importantly, what can we learn from this really unique perspective?
Yeah, you might be surprised by the synergy.
I think so.
So for this deep dive, we're really digging into his story. He saw Bitcoin as more than just, finance. He saw it as a potential tool for environmental renewal. So we're going to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding this connection.
Exploring the economics, the environmental side, the philosophy.
Right, all of it. And how it kind of challenges what most people think about tech, energy, and, well, wealth itself.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. His origins. He grew up in Louisiana.
Right. And he's mentioned how humor was sort of a coping mechanism growing up, dealing with challenges.
Which seems like a trait that stuck with him, that ability to find a different angle on tough situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then comes his early career, which is pretty striking, a whole decade in the U.S. Air Force.
Not just Air Force, but specifically a nuclear weapons technician.
Yeah, handling incredibly high-stakes technology. And then he hits this point, this pivotal moment, where he realizes he just doesn't align with the mission's purpose anymore. A deep kind of philosophical break.
That must have been huge.
Massive.
Yeah.
And it led to this, well, really audacious leap of faith. His thinking was essentially, look, if I can handle nuclear weapons.
I can handle anything. Yeah.
Exactly. I can figure anything out. It's this powerful shift, isn't it, from focusing on, immense destructive power.
Wanting to build.
To heal. Precisely. Creation and healing.
And he really ran with that. This mindset shift fueled a pretty radical career change.
Totally radical. He just immersed himself in permaculture, ecological design.
For how long?
A full decade. Really hands-on, building sustainable landscapes, food systems.
And it's important to stress, right, that this environmental commitment was before Bitcoin.
Oh, absolutely. Long before. This wasn't some later add-on. His dedication to fixing the earth was already deeply rooted.
So, okay, he spent 10 years working directly with the land, trying to heal ecosystems. How does something like Bitcoin, which seems so digital, so abstract, even come onto his radar, let alone connect with this physical, ecological work?
Well, the introduction came in 2015. His older brother actually told him about it first.
Okay.
And his initial interest, his motivation, it came directly from his permaculture work.
How so?
He's seen lots of younger people who wanted to live more sustainably, get into regenerative practices.
The interest was there.
The interest was absolutely there, but the economics were tough. The upfront costs, the traditional financial system, it often made it inaccessible for them.
Ah, okay. So he saw Bitcoin as a potential way around that.
Exactly. A potential solution to that specific problem. A way to maybe empower people economically outside the usual channels so they could actually afford to make those sustainable choices.
That's a really interesting angle, turning a financial technology into an enabler for, well, environmental action.
Yeah. And he also credits people like Andreas Antonopoulos, some of the key Bitcoin educators.
For deepening his understanding.
Right, helping him see the broader potential. So by 2017, he's not just interested, he's investing significantly.
And consciously linking it. He saw Bitcoin's capabilities as fitting with his regenerative ag vision.
Yes, explicitly. It wasn't just a side investment. It became part of the strategy for achieving his environmental goals.
Okay, but we have to address the elephant in the room, right? The energy usage, the FUD.
Definitely. The fear, uncertainty, and doubt around Bitcoin's energy consumption. It's a huge talking point.
So what's his counter? How does he square that circle?
Well, his argument is pretty layered. He starts with the idea of Bitcoin as the world's hardest money.
Meaning
Its fixed supply, its resistance to censorship and confiscation. It creates a very stable economic foundation.
Okay. And how does that connect to the environment?
The thinking is, this stability encourages long-term thinking,
Right.
saving, investing for the future, which contrasts, with inflationary systems that can push constant consumption and resource use.
So sound money leads to more sustainable behavior, less short-term extraction.
That's the core idea. By giving people a reliable way to store value, it frees them up to invest in things like regenerative projects that take time to pay off rather than just quick wins.
Interesting. But what about the direct energy use for mining itself?
Right. And here he makes a really specific point, one you hear more often now,
Which is
that Bitcoin mining often seeks out stranded energy or excess renewable energy.
energy that would otherwise be wasted.
Exactly. Think of like natural gas being flared off at an oil well because it's not economical to capture and transport.
Or maybe excess hydropower at night when demand is low.
Precisely those kinds of scenarios. Bitcoin miners can set up shop right there, use that energy that has no other buyer, and essentially monetize it.
So it's not just about using green energy, it's about creating a market for energy that's currently just lost or even harmful, like flared methane.
Yes. It changes the economics of energy waste. That's the argument. It incentivizes capturing and using it productively.
What does that imply, bigger picture, if Bitcoin can shift energy economics like that?
Well, it potentially turns an environmental problem into an economic opportunity. And it raises a really important question about communication, doesn't it?
How so?
How do you talk about this with people who are, understandably, very concerned about climate change and energy use?
Right. You can't just dismiss their concerns.
Absolutely not. And his approach, what he advocates, is meeting environmentalists where they are. Start with their concerns, acknowledge them.
And then connect those concerns to how Bitcoin might actually be part of the solution.
Exactly. Show how he can align with environmental goals, rather than just arguing against their points, building bridges, not just winning debates.
That seems much more productive.
It aims to be, finding common ground.
And speaking of solutions, he's actually doing something tangible, right? Not just talking theory. This Bitcoin Stewardship Initiative.
Yes, a concrete project, putting this vision into practice, raising capital specifically for environmental restoration.
And the mechanism is interesting. Green bonds backed by Bitcoin. How did that work exactly?
Well, green bonds themselves are debt instruments, money raised for specific environmental projects.
Standard enough in finance.
Right. But the innovation here is linking them to Bitcoin. It could mean using Bitcoin as collateral, maybe, or somehow tying the bond's performance to Bitcoin.
What's the advantage of doing that?
It potentially opens it up to a whole new pool of investors, people comfortable with digital assets. Plus, it might add global accessibility, maybe more liquidity than traditional green bonds sometimes have. It blends the old and new finance worlds.
And the goals for the initiative, they sound pretty big.
Oh, they are ambitious. Funding regenerative agriculture, capping leaking methane wells like those stranded gas sources we talked about, fighting desertification around the world.
These are huge systemic problems.
Yeah.
Tackling that scope seems monumental.
It is. And that's probably why he's also partnered with Daniel Batten.
Another big voice in the Bitcoin environmental space.
Exactly. To strengthen the message, the credibility, build a coalition, make it clear this is a serious, actionable plan.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit to the philosophy behind some of this. You mentioned something counterintuitive.
Yes. The abundance mindset.
Right. Bitcoin has a fixed supply. That sounds like the definition of scarcity. So how does that foster abundance thinking?
It's fascinating, isn't it? The idea is that because Bitcoin's supply is fixed and predictable, and because it's hard to confiscate, it gives individuals a real sense of security in their savings. True ownership. And that security, the theory goes, can free people from the constant anxiety of, inflation eating away their wealth, or needing to constantly chase higher returns in risky ways.
So less scrambling, more building, leveraging what you have effectively.
Sort of.
Sure.
It shifts the focus from competing for perpetually scarce resources within a potentially rigged game to building value on a stable foundation. That feeling of stability is the abundance.
It's a different way to frame it. And he connects this to breaking free from certain global financial systems.
Yes. The belief is that as Bitcoin adoption grows, it empowers individuals and communities. It gives them an alternative.
An alternative to what, specifically? He mentioned things like IMF loans.
Right. Sometimes those big international loans come with strings-attached conditions, restructuring demands.
Austerity measures, privatization, things critics say can hurt local populations or keep nations dependent.
Exactly. So the idea is Bitcoin offers a potential escape route, a way for communities to build their own wealth, their own sustainable systems, without relying on these external structures that might not have their best interests at heart. Financial sovereignty, essentially.
Okay, let's circle back to energy for a moment, the synergy aspect.
Right. He emphasizes that already a significant chunk of the Bitcoin network, over half, according to some analyses, runs on renewable or stranded energy.
And he expects that to grow.
Definitely. Because miners are always chasing the cheapest electricity. Increasingly, the cheapest sources are renewables that are maybe geographically isolated or producing excess power the grid can't use.
So the economic incentive drives greener mining.
That's the dynamic.
Right.
Bitcoin basically acts as an energy buyer of last resort, making previously uneconomic green energy projects viable.
And you mentioned nuclear earlier. How does that fit in, especially given his background?
It's a fascinating full circle, isn't it? He sees nuclear with its high consistent power output and low emissions as a really natural partner for Bitcoin mining.
Stable power for a network that needs stability.
Exactly. It connects his past with his present work. Sort of symmetry there.
And beyond just powering the mining, what about the byproducts, like heat?
Yeah, that's another layer. Bitcoin mining generates a lot of heat, but instead of just venting it,
You could reuse it.
right, for heating buildings in cold climates or maybe warming greenhouses for agriculture, integrating the waste product back into a productive use.
So it suggests a whole different model for energy use. More circular, less linear, consume and discard.
Exactly, an integrated system where different processes feed into each other. That's the bigger picture potential.
Wow. Okay, this deep dive has covered a lot of ground. From a really personal transformation, nuclear weapons, to permaculture, through some pretty deep technical points about Bitcoin,
Right.
landing on some really compelling environmental arguments and actions. It ties together in a way you wouldn't initially expect.
It really does.
Yeah.
It shows pretty clearly, I think, how something like decentralized finance, Bitcoin in this case, can be paired with regenerative thinking.
To tackle some of these huge global challenges, both economic and ecological.
Yeah, finding synergy where you least expect it. Using incentives to drive positive change. It's a powerful example.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How does this story challenge your assumptions about technologies or fields you thought were incompatible? Could there be other surprising combinations out there with potential to solve big problems?
And maybe, how could shifting towards an abundance mindset, even when things seem limited, unlock new possibilities for you? Something to think about.